Economists rarely use the word certainty when talking about the future, but at present I would like to make an exception to this rule. We are pretty convinced about three major developments that we expect for 2023. The first one is disinflation. Inflation should come down during the course of this year for a number of reasons. The slowdown in economic activity, the easing of supply chain bottlenecks, but also importantly, the fact that the year-over-year comparison of energy price changes will become a favorable factor and will push down inflation. The second key trend will be that the policy tightening cycle that was started by central banks in the course of 2022 should come to an end. That is, that we should reach the peak level of the official interest rates. That does not mean that rates will be cut subsequently, no, but at least they will reach a peak level, and that will already imply a change in sentiment in financial markets. Then the third factor is that part of the year will be spent in recession. Recession probably has already started in the euro area, but later this year we will also have a recession in the United States, and that will be the consequence of the aggressive monetary tightening in conjunction with elevated inflation. Aggressive monetary tightening makes credit more expensive, is weighing on demand. Elevated inflation is weighing on purchasing power and is also weakening demand. So 2023, part of the year spent in recession. As one would expect, these quote-unquote certainties are surrounded by a range of uncertainties, various factors of known unknown. The first one on the list is the extent and the speed of disinflation. There is actually a concern, an elevated concern, that the decline in inflation would be slower than expected. One reason is that the number of companies complaining about rising input prices certainly has come down, but still remains quite high, and that will have an impact on their sales prices. Another reason is that wage growth is expected to accelerate further in the euro area. It remains high in the US, and that should also have an impact on inflation via the influence on the pricing policy of companies. The second source of uncertainty is the peak level of official interest rates. Should it turn out that interest rates will be hiked more than what is currently priced by financial markets, it would have a bearing on the financing conditions in the economy. It would have an impact on the cost of borrowing via capital markets by corporate issuers, by companies, but also by governments. It would have an influence on mortgage rates, etc. All these elements brought together would have an impact on how demand will evolve in the economy. And that brings me to a third source of uncertainty, which is the exact nature of the recession. We expect that the recession will be rather short-lived and not very deep, that is, will be rather shallow. But it could turn out that it would be deeper actually. One reason why it could be deeper is the fourth factor of uncertainty, which is what is going to happen to energy prices. Energy prices have been coming down in recent weeks, but there could be another spike. Think of gas price. And then finally, an element of uncertainty which is more related to 2024, but which will have an influence on decisions taken in the course of this year, is the exact nature of the recovery. The expectations of companies, of households about the recovery for next year will already influence the decisions that they take in the course of this year. So, three certainties, quote unquote, but many uncertainties. When thinking about the outlook for 2023, it is important to pay enough attention to several factors of resilience. You can call them support factors. The first element of resilience is labor hoarding. Companies in the US, in the euro area, have been struggling to find staff, to recruit people, and that will have an influence on the way they manage their headcount during an economic downturn. Companies will be reluctant to let people go if they consider that during the recovery they will again be confronted with major problems in finding the talent and finding the staff. So holding on to the headcount is going to be a factor of resilience during an economic downturn. The second element of resilience is the energy-related investments, the energy transition, require huge investments, and that will also be a support factor for economic activity and for demand. Another support factor is coming from governments. Governments in many countries in the euro area have taken measures to cushion the impact of high inflation, of high energy inflation for households and in a number of cases also for companies. So that is going to be an element of resilience. What also will play a role is the excess savings that have been accumulated during the pandemic. Admittedly, they have been partly eroded by high inflation, but still they have not disappeared completely. So that will mean that if necessary, households will be able to tap into these excess savings to support their spending. And then the final element of resilience is that the balance sheet quality, and I'm quoting the IMF here, the balance sheet quality of households and of companies in the euro area is of a significantly better shape than has been the case for many, many years. So, several factors of resilience that should be taken in mind when striking the balance between the elements of uncertainty and then the elements of uncertainty that I have been covering. I thank you for having watched Equity Every Week this week and invite you to join us again next week for a new episode. Thank you.